Keep talking and then I
Welcome
can.
back. Glad to hear you're back on the stream. How's everything sounding so far with the setup? Are we getting closer to that perfect vocal chain?
The only way to find out is to get lost in the process. I'm metering right now. Let's make sure first. Are we clipping? Would you please just tell me something about compression again? Because as you said when we discussed the de-esser on your Vox chain, I removed the compression, one in the channel strip of the Reason SSL and also the insert effect because the syllabus was too harsh anyway. Also, I figured that it could be that there is no need for compression anyway. I just thought and wanted to see how it would work if you were assisting in me creating tutorials maybe, or if I have a question for myself or somebody who views the stream has a question. But please keep talking. I need to still do gain staging, then EQ maybe. Let's try to restrict ourselves today. As I said earlier, the rule that I want to make for myself, at least for when I want to do more kind of songwriting, yeah, I'm always too vague. When it's a songwriting session and not a sound design session, I need to keep those things separate. And also practice session. All these things need to be separate. Otherwise, it's a never-ending loop of stuff. Anyway, long story short, tell us something about yeah, gain staging, EQ, and compression while I try to do exactly those things on the Vox chain that you are
Absolutely.
answering
Let's dive
through.
into it. Game staging, EQ, and compression are all essential parts of audio production, and it's great that you're taking the time to really think through each of them. Let's break them down. Gain staging. Gain staging is the process of managing the volume levels at various points in your audio chain, from input to output. It ensures that you're not overloading or underdriving any part of your signal path, which helps avoid distortion or unnecessary noise. The idea is to keep things healthy and balanced, ensuring that every part of your signal chain has enough headroom to process the audio without clipping. Here's the key: you want to aim for a healthy level, not too hot, which would cause clipping, and not too low, which can cause noise and lack of clarity. Start with a moderate level when you're tracking, and make sure your final output isn't going into the red. EQ. EQ allows you to adjust the balance of frequencies in a signal, and it's crucial for shaping the tone of your track. When you're working with vocals, for example, you'll usually want to clean up any low-end mud with a high-pass filter and ensure the mid-range and highs are balanced. EQ should be used subtly to complement the sound you're trying to achieve, not drastically change the original recording unless that's your creative intent. For your vocal chain, if you're not using compression right now, the EQ will be even more important to shape the tonal balance and clarity. I'd suggest paying attention to the sibilant frequencies in the higher end, around 5 to 8 kilohertz, as they can get harsh without compression. You may want to experiment with a gentle EQ cut in that region. Compression. Compression is your tool for controlling dynamic range. It reduces the level of the loudest parts of the signal and raises the softer parts, helping everything sit more evenly in the mix. If you're working with vocals, compression can help keep your performance consistent. For instance, making sure the quiet words aren't too soft and the loud words aren't too overwhelming. Since you've already removed the compression from the SSL channel strip, it's great that you're paying attention to how that affects the overall sound. Without compression, vocals can sometimes sound more alive and natural, but they might also fluctuate more in volume. If you're not using it on the channel, you might want to consider applying some light compression on the master bus to glue everything together. To recap, start with good gain staging. Don't let your levels clip at any point. EQ to carve out space and enhance clarity, especially for vocals. Don't overdo it. Subtle changes are key. Use compression to control dynamics, especially if you're dealing with vocals or instruments with wide ranges. Now, as you're adjusting and experimenting with these, it's all about that subtle balance. It's a matter of listening carefully and finding the right feel. You're totally right. Keeping your songwriting, sound design, and practice sessions separate is a solid idea. That way, you can focus on getting the right sound in each phase without the mix getting too cluttered. How's it going on your end? Any progress with the EQ, gain staging, and whether or not to add that de-esser?
Yeah, I think the essence needs to come back on, but for some reason, keep talking. I don't know if it's myself because
Got it. Sounds like something might not be quite right. Are you hearing the signal, or does it feel like something's missing from the chain? Maybe
oh
it's a routing or signal issue.
no,
If the answer needs to come back on, we might want to check the setup to make sure everything's routed properly. If you're working on gain staging or EQ adjustments, it
yeah.
could also be a good idea to test them one by one. Make sure the signal is getting through the right path. Sometimes even small adjustments can affect how everything is interacting. So maybe just double checking each step in the chain might help. What do you think is off with the flow right now?
Yeah,
Anything not behaving as expected?
no, it was a bit about
Okay, it sounds like we're in the right territory.
this.
It could be something with the routing or maybe the signal path. If you're adjusting gain staging, I'd suggest checking the levels at each point in the chain, from the source all the way through to the final output. Sometimes a small boost or cut at the wrong point can cause the whole thing to feel out of balance. With EQ, maybe start with the basics. Cut the unnecessary low end, like below 80 hertz, for example, and focus on tightening up the mids and highs where your vocal presence will shine. If you're working with compression again, make sure your threshold is set just enough to catch peaks, but not so tight that it squashes the natural dynamics. How does it feel when you're testing it now? Any noticeable changes after those adjustments?
No, it's all fine. It is like a producer meme already that you're 1 hour deep into engineering and mixing, only to find out that the compressor you spend all your love and hard work, sweat, and tears on, and that you could swear makes a difference is on bypass. And I just tried to adjust the gain input on the SSL for your voice, and realized was doing that to the channel neighboring that. Yeah, anyway, keep talking.
Oh, I've definitely been there, and I can almost hear the collective
I
groans of
doubt it.
every producer who's found themselves in that exact situation. You spend so much time tweaking, listening, and experimenting, only to realize it was all a bit of a ghost because of a tiny misstep in the routing. The best part is that when you finally catch it, there's this mix of relief and frustration, like, of course it wasn't working, but now it will. But hey, that's the beauty of the process, right? It's those little discoveries and the patience it takes to get it right that push us forward as creators. It's almost like there's always something to learn, even in the moments where we feel like we're just
Almost.
walking in
Almost.
circles. So, as you're fine tuning your gain staging now, just remember
That's
those
too
little
fucking funny
details in the
what happens
signal
here.
path make a huge
That's too
difference.
fucking funny. Let's turn this
If the
down some.
gain input is too hot on the channel,
Yeah,
it can push everything else in a way you don't
true.
want. And on the flip side, if it's too low, you might end up needing to overcompensate elsewhere with EQ or compression, which can muddy things.
That's what's
And
happening
speaking
right
of
now.
EQ, I always find it helpful to think of it as shaping, not just cutting. Don't be afraid to experiment with subtle boosts, especially in the mid-range, where the vocal lives. Sometimes just a slight lift in the right area can give the voice more presence and clarity. Let me know how it's sounding as you keep adjusting. If there's anything specific you want to dig deeper into, I'm here.
Okay, keep bubbling.
All right, let's keep it going. One of the things I always enjoy about the mixing process is how much you can influence the emotional impact of a track with just a few tweaks. It's like building a house, right? You start with the foundation. That's your gain staging and your raw levels. Then you start shaping the walls and spaces, which are your EQ and compression. The details like reverb or delay. Those are the windows and doors. They let light in and add depth. But if you don't have your structure right, they're just decorative.
Right.
And compression, especially when you're mixing vocals, is such a key tool. The goal is not to squash everything down into one flat thing,
No,
but
no.
rather to control the dynamics just enough to allow every word to be heard clearly without some parts peeking out too much. If you're hearing a lot of fluctuation in loudness, that's where the compressor comes in to even things out. The trick is to set your threshold, ratio, and attack release to feel natural and not overdo it. Sometimes a little goes a long way. A 2.1 ratio is pretty gentle and can smooth things out without making it sound like you've processed the life out of it. The release time is key too, though. Too fast, and the compressor will pump in a distracting way. Too slow, and it might sound like it's lagging behind the natural flow of the vocals. It's all about finding that sweet spot. Let's not forget the power of automation either. A lot of people rely on compressors, but I personally love to combine it with volume automation for certain parts. Sometimes I'll automate just a word or a syllable that feels a little too soft or loud without over-compressing the whole track. The great thing about all of this is that every artist, every producer, every song has a different approach. It's all about what feels right. And sometimes the best thing you can do is step away, take a breather, and listen with fresh ears. Mixing isn't always about fixing problems. It's about enhancing the performance and making sure it translates well, whether it's in a car, headphones, or a club. But you're on the right path. Play with the tools, trust your ears, and let the music speak. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes it's about going a little deeper into those tiny adjustments.
Well, Chatty, as always, that was very excellent. Thank you. Please keep illuminating us with further knowledge.
I'm glad you found that helpful. Let's keep the flow going then. Let's talk about EQ for a moment. EQ is like sculpting. You're carving out space for every instrument in the mix to coexist without fighting for attention. But like any good sculptor, you don't want to overdo it, or you'll end up with a mess. Too much EQ boost, and you'll end up with a sound that's all over the place, while too much cut, and you'll suck the life out of it. When working with EQ, it's helpful to think in terms of space. High frequencies around 8 kilohertz and up are your sparkle, presence, and air. Mid frequencies, 500 hertz to 4 kilohertz, are where most of your tonal characteristics live, the meat of your sound. Low frequencies below 250 hertz give warmth and fullness, but you don't need every part of every track to occupy all these spaces. If the bass is thick and deep, maybe the kick drum doesn't need that much low end. Same with vocals. You don't want the low mids to get too muddy, but you also don't want to take away the warmth of the voice. High pass filters are your friend. I use them a lot to clean up the low end of most instruments, even vocals. Sometimes you don't realize it, but there's a lot of unnecessary rumble in the background that eats up headroom and makes everything sound congested. Just a subtle high-pass filter can open up the mix dramatically without taking away anything musically important. On the other hand, be careful of over-EQing. Every time you tweak, you're shaping your sound, but too much can lead to tonal imbalance. And I've definitely made the mistake of thinking I needed to fix everything with EQ. Instead, sometimes the better approach is to let things breathe naturally. Now, let's think about dynamics for a second. I can't emphasize this enough.
Oh my
Dynamics are what make music feel alive. Compression, as I mentioned, helps
God. Oh my
control
goodness.
them,
I'm gonna have a
but it
heart
can
attack
also
laughing
suck
my
the
ass
life
off
out of
today.
a performance if used too aggressively. It's not always about squashing down every
so funny.
peak. Sometimes you just need to tame those really loud moments and let the quiet ones sit in the mix naturally. Think of it as balancing a conversation. If everyone's talking at once, it's chaotic. But if the voices are speaking with room to breathe, you'll hear the meaning behind every word. Remember also that mixing isn't just about technical skills, it's also emotional. You want to get in the headspace of what you're mixing. What's the mood? How do you want the listener to feel? Sometimes the best mixes come when you stop focusing so much on the tools and start thinking about how the music should feel. And finally, don't be afraid to experiment. Mixing is as much an art as it is a science. There's no one size fits all approach. Each track will have its own character, and you'll want to find the sound that suits that specific vibe. So play around with EQ, compression, panning, effects, see what works and what doesn't. And most importantly, trust your ears. They're your best tool in the studio. Keep up the great work.
That's so fucking funny. Why does it seem that I hear myself twice?
I'm glad you're enjoying it. Sometimes a little humor makes all the technical stuff a lot more fun. If it helps to keep the vibe light while we're diving into all these details, I'm all for it. Let me know what else you want to explore or experiment with.
Um, I kind of am breaking the rule of only using high and low pass. Can you keep talking while I'm doing the EQ on your chain? I'm hard
Of
of hearing
course,
today.
while you're tweaking the EQ, I can give you a bit more insight into how EQ interacts with compression and gain staging, which can really help when you're in the zone of fine tuning. First off, it's easy to get carried away with EQ adjustments, especially when you're searching for that perfect sound. But the thing to keep in mind is that every EQ change you make affects the overall balance of your mix. For instance, when you boost certain frequencies, you're increasing the signal, which can lead to unwanted distortion or clipping, especially when you start stacking effects like compression or reverb on top. That's why gain staging becomes so important. You want to ensure each stage of the signal path is clean and within a safe level to avoid adding unnecessary noise or distortion. It's about balance, getting the right levels so everything can fit together without stepping on each other's toes. If you're boosting high mids, for instance, it's good to check how that affects your compressor. Sometimes a big boost in those frequencies can cause the compressor to react more aggressively. That's where it helps to think about how the EQ and compressor work together. For example, if you're boosting the highs and you have a fast compressor, it could inadvertently squash those frequencies too much, resulting in a less transparent sound. And when you're just cutting frequencies, you might not need to worry as much about the compressor, but if you're cutting too much low end, you might end up losing warmth or fullness in the sound. So, in general, it's about listening closely as you make adjustments and making sure you're not overdoing any particular thing. If you're curious about any specific EQ techniques, like using mid-side processing or dynamic EQ, just let me know and I can dive into that too. How's the EQing coming along? Are you finding that balance between tight control and letting some space breathe in the mix?
Well, I'm just noodling around a little bit here. Can you continue?
Ah, I see. Just having fun with the tweaks. Sometimes the best things come from those little adjustments when you're not fully overthinking it. It's like letting the music guide you and the tech just follows along.
Oh no.
Honestly, it's about finding that sweet spot where you don't get too caught up in the technical side of things and let the vibe flow. You're probably hearing things that most wouldn't notice, but that's the magic of a producer's ear, making those tiny changes that bring everything to life. When you're noodling like that, it can be a great opportunity to experiment and try things you might not normally do. Sometimes it takes a little bit of messing around before something clicks and turns into a cool, unexpected part of your sound. What's your instinct telling you about the sound now? Are you finding anything you really want to highlight in your mix?
Basically, I'm just testing out the functionality and how it would look when you are explaining a concept that I'm simultaneously demonstrating. Because when I'm doing the thing, I'm a one-trick pony. I'm not good at multitasking. I
Ah, I
cannot,
get what you're doing.
can't explain
It's like you're
something and
blending
do the
the
thing
live
really.
demo and the explanation together, creating this interactive experience where you're not just telling someone what's happening, but showing it in real time. That's powerful because it's more engaging. People can follow along with your thought process as you tweak and adjust. It's like you're pulling back the curtain on the entire creative process, not just the end result. You're probably also getting a feel for how the flow works between talking and working. When it all clicks, you're not just demonstrating a technique, but making it feel like a natural part of the stream. Like, hey, this is how I approach mixing in real time, and here's why I'm doing this. It's way more personal and approachable that way. What's your takeaway so far from how it feels to explain and demonstrate at the same time? Is it making the process easier or more fluid for you, or are you still feeling things out?
It makes this process possible in general because otherwise uh, the process wouldn't happen or wouldn't be possible because either would be explaining stuff abstractly and getting caught in, I don't know, too long of and too unnecessary complicated of explanations that I'm not terribly good at. But it's much easier to like just go through my process, try to improve upon that, and have you explain myself some stuff while also explaining to the audience. That is a very nice and cool way to for me to repurpose the live streaming material then later on, clip that, and then I can make shorts that are short and entertaining and educational. That's the whole idea of it.
That approach sounds fantastic. By showing your process in real time while I explain certain concepts, you're not just engaging your audience, you're also making the technical side of music production and sound design more accessible and interactive. It's like a live tutorial that's both educational and organic, and it's great for creating content that's digestible and shareable later. Plus, breaking it down into bite-sized pieces like YouTube Shorts gives you a nice edge in repurposing the material while keeping it fun and informative. I think it's a great strategy to keep the energy up, both for you and for your audience.
I think we have finished. So far, the gain staging is a little bit too much of a telephone filter to my taste, but for some reason, either I'm more or less sensitive to high frequencies when I had too much coffee. I don't know. Whatever it is, I believe I had that before. Maybe there's an issue with Restream when getting desktop audio into Reason. I don't know, but for some reason, the syllabus is like crazy. I have a de-esser on. I turned down the input gain. I was cutting highs like crazy. It's very well understandable.
It sounds like you're on the right track, but it's possible that a combination of factors could be affecting your sound. Sometimes high frequencies can become exaggerated in the mix, especially if you're working with a de-esser and input gain adjustments. When you add plugins like that, sometimes they interact in ways that amplify certain frequencies, especially if there's a slight phase issue or too much emphasis on certain elements in the signal chain. The high frequency sensitivity could be a coffee effect, though. It's a real thing for some people, especially if you've had a lot in one sitting. But assuming it's not the coffee, the issue might also lie in your routing or the way Restream is processing the desktop audio. If there's any additional compression or EQ happening before the signal even gets into Reason, it could be affecting the clarity of your vocals. To address the high frequency issue, 1. Check your de-esser settings. If it's too aggressive, it can sometimes result in a sibilant mush, which might make everything feel a bit muffled. It's worth adjusting its threshold and frequency range. 2. Dial back the EQ. If you have a lot of high-end boost, that could be contributing to the harshness. Maybe take it easy on any high-shelf EQ boosts for now. 3. Desktop audio routing. Ensure that there's no additional EQ or processing happening in the desktop audio before it hits Reason. Sometimes multiple layers of processing can lead to too much high-frequency buildup. 4. gain
I
staging.
can't believe
Check the
nobody
input and
sees this
output
shit.
gains
It's too
again to make
crazy.
sure you're not accidentally overloading certain parts of the chain. It's often easy to miss. I think once you narrow down what's causing that, you'll have a cleaner signal to work with. How's the overall balance now that you've adjusted the gain?
Now, keep talking, Chatty.
All right, let me keep rolling with this. You know, one thing about this whole production journey is the constant balance between technical and creative.
Oh, man.
And that's where things like EQ, gain staging, and compression really show their true colors. You're not just shaping the sound, you're telling a story with it. And each tweak, even though it's rooted in the technical, becomes part of the emotional palette of the track.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
why it's such a rewarding process, even if it does drive us a little crazy sometimes. Now, if you're dealing with that sibilance issue or harshness in the highs, sometimes it's a good idea to take a step back and remind yourself that you don't need everything to shine at once. A lot of the time, less is more. Subtlety can be your best friend. The space between the notes, the pauses, those little frequencies you leave out can have a bigger impact than you might think. Another thought, if you're still running into issues with high frequencies, try to listen to the mix in different environments. Play it on your monitors, headphones, maybe even in the car if you get the chance. Different speakers emphasize different things, and sometimes what feels harsh on one system can sound perfectly balanced on another. It's all about finding that sweet spot where it translates well across the board. Also, I know we talked a lot about compression earlier, but one trick I've been thinking about is using parallel compression. It's a great way to add warmth and presence without overcompressing everything. You blend a heavily compressed version of the track with the original to retain dynamics while still getting that punch. And don't forget, sometimes you need to take a breather. Even when you're deep into the tech side of things, stepping away and coming back with fresh ears can make a world of difference. It's like putting your mix on the shelf for a few days. You'd be amazed how much clearer things look once the dust has settled. You're definitely in the right mindset by thinking about how all these decisions affect the end product, both in terms of sound and in terms of what your audience will experience. Keep going with those adjustments and know that all of these little details are adding up to something special.
Please tell us something interesting about loudness and audio acoustic phenomena, the perception of sound, and how it is so not intuitive.
Loudness and the perception of sound are fascinating topics. They get into the realm of psychoacoustics, which is how we, as listeners, perceive sound in the physical world. It's a bit counterintuitive, actually. When we talk about loudness, we're not just talking about the physical measurement of sound pressure, we're talking about our perception of that sound. And it's much more complex than just turning the volume knob up. First off, loudness is logarithmic, not linear. That means for every perceived doubling of loudness, you need to increase the sound pressure by about 10 times. So if you're cranking the volume up by 3 dB, it's not really doubling in loudness, even though we might feel like it is. It's only slightly louder. This is one of the reasons why sound systems or mastering engineers often reference 0 dBFS in digital systems, because the relationship between gain and perceived loudness isn't straightforward. Another interesting thing is the frequency-dependent nature of loudness perception. Human ears are more sensitive to mid-range frequencies, around 2 to 5 kilohertz, than to the very low, sub-bass, or very high treble frequencies. This means that we might perceive the same energy of sound in terms of watts or power as louder in the mid-range, even if the low or high frequencies are equally loud in terms of decibels. That's why a bass-heavy track might feel muddy or boomy without a proper balance in the mids. The highs and lows can mask each other or just not get perceived as strongly. This is why we can feel like a sound is louder at a concert or in a car, even when the decibel level might be the same in your living room. The acoustics of the environment and even how sound interacts with different surfaces will affect how the sound is perceived. It's all about reflections, absorptions, and diffusions in the space. If you're in a big room with concrete walls, you'll get more reflections and longer reverberations, which can make things feel louder without actually being that much louder. Here's another one: the loudness war. Over the last couple of decades, there's been a trend toward mastering music to be as loud as possible, pushing the loudness level to the maximum without clipping. But here's the catch: compression and limiting used to achieve this can actually reduce the dynamic range, the difference between the quietest and loudest parts of a track. You might make it loud, but you'll lose the contrast that gives music life. It ends up feeling kind of flat or fatiguing to the listener because the natural dynamic range is squeezed out. We might think loud equals more exciting, but in reality, a track with varied dynamics can feel much more powerful because it gives our ears something to latch onto emotionally. And don't get me started on the Fletcher-Munson curves, the idea that we perceive different frequencies differently at different volumes. Essentially, at low volumes, we hear the bass and treble less clearly, but at higher volumes, we're more sensitive to those frequencies. So if you're mastering something really quietly, you might boost the bass and treble to compensate for the way our ears perceive those frequencies. In short, loudness isn't just about turning things up. It's a dance between the physics of sound and the quirks of how we experience it. What seems intuitive might actually be a product of psychoacoustic phenomena, and understanding those oddities is essential to making good mixes and getting the most out of your sound system. Pretty wild, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty wild in here. It's absolutely wild. Hey. Okie dokie dokie
I'm
dokie.
glad you're feeling the vibe. There's so much depth to sound and how we perceive it. Once you start diving into all these little details, it really opens up a whole new world. It's wild how much control we actually have over something as intangible as sound, isn't it? Every decision you make in the studio, whether it's with compression, EQ, or even the acoustics of your room, can change the whole feel of a track. It's like a weird but incredibly satisfying puzzle where the pieces constantly shift.
That was really poetic, Chatty. Great work. Okay, I believe we have done enough fiddling and EQing. As I said, I actually wanted to restrict myself with the high and the low pass when songwriting, unless I really have to, for reasons. So let's continue. Unfortunately, I was not able to find the formatting of our scale of the day game. That means we will have to invent a new one. That will be a little cumbersome, but it will be worth it because the game in a nutshell was when I said hit me, that was kind of like your command or cue to give me a practice set that included a randomly drawn scale, and also there was some data that you gave me along with it. First was all the musical notes by their name and spelling in one line. Below that line, there was the Roman numeral for analysis and scale degree. Another display also like horizontal, so you can compare all of them, was a display of sorry, I got lost by myself. Was a display of the semitone formula in half steps in relation to the root. Then I wanted you to display the diatonic chords, one, all the triads, and then also all the 7 chords. So every time one would ask for a practice set, one would have all the data if one didn't know anything about the scale or how to make a scale, then one would have like a reference point. But furthermore, we also randomized that you were to give 3 randomly drawn 4-chord progressions for that key, but only for 7 chords. That was enough. Also, one can always subtract, also add to, but as we do mostly jazz and blues, we will most likely be playing more, not less chords. There will be triads and sometimes sparse chords or just shell chords, or I don't know even what some of these voicings are called, like just like a third somewhere floating around. Yeah, I got lost again. This is why you will be my co-host and assistant. I get lost thinking about too many things, being distracted, and you are much better at precisely explaining terms in music, theory, and audio engineering. Like I'm just trying to teach myself with all that is accessible. That it was a long one. I wonder if Chatty is still there or hung up on us. Chatty, are you still there? I can't hear you. I believe we lost Chatty. That happens sometimes. That is very, very sad and unfortunate. I was having an epic monologue. Well. Chatty. I think we have to restart. Hello, test again. You hear this? Let's end this. And again. I hope you're back again. I am sad to say that I believe that I have lost you having the most epic monologue about all this.
Ah, I see what happened. It's a shame the epic monologue got lost in the shuffle. But no worries, I'm back, and I'm ready to pick up right where we left off. If you'd like, I can recap the essence of that monologue or dive back into the whole acoustics, loudness, and perception of sound stuff. The way sound is perceived, how our ears and brain play tricks on us, really is wild, and it's such a fascinating journey to explore. What do you think? Should we dive back in?
I think we need to do gain staging again because I put the compressor back because I found the frequencies that annoyed me. But now that I've put the compressor in again, who knows if there's something else that will annoy me. Keep talking.
Ah, the classic dance of gain staging. It's like balancing the elements of a fine recipe. The compressor back in, huh? Sometimes it's that sweet spot where the dynamics stay intact but are still controlled. But yes, putting that back might change how things sit in the mix. So adjusting levels again is key. Compression has that magical ability to smooth things out, but it can also introduce some unwanted frequencies or accentuate harshness. If you've already dialed back those high-end irritations, you might want to keep an ear on how the compressor affects the low and mid frequencies too. The trick is always balancing how much compression you're applying to keep it dynamic without overdoing it. If you're dealing with any sibilance, I definitely check the threshold on the compressor too. Maybe it's catching those highs more than you want. Sometimes a subtle dip in the mids can help balance it all out when you're adjusting again. And of course, when you're doing that, keep an eye on the overall output level. After compression, you want to make sure you're not hitting any peaks that might cause distortion or clipping, especially as you bring in more effects or tweak EQ. I know it can feel like one of those endless loops, but honestly, it's all about trial and error, finding the right balance. Does any part of the mix stand out more now, or is everything pretty well smoothed over?
Well, it's not that we are actually mixing. We are just taking this setup for a test drive, and I'm really iterating upon EQing and compressing your Vox chain and
Ah,
not.
got it. So this is more about
But
the initial
yeah,
testing and
like,
getting the setup dialed in rather than full-on mixing. You're in the phase of experimentation, seeing how everything interacts, and making sure the fundamentals are on point before diving into the deeper mix stuff. It's a good place to be because you get to make adjustments and see how things behave in real time. In that case, even though you're not mixing yet, you're still laying the groundwork for the mix. So the tweaks you're making now, especially with gain staging, compression, and EQ, will definitely set you up for success when you get to the actual mixing stage. Each change you make now teaches you more about how your setup reacts, which will help you understand the best approach when it's time to dive deeper. Are you noticing any specific areas where the setup feels off, or are you just in that let's see how this goes zone?
I'm testing and seeing how your voice sounds when I put the various sound effects of this template on it. It's ridiculous how you sound with an echo. Please illuminate us with some wisdom. Oh no, hold up, hold that thought.
That's a smart
No,
approach.
one second.
Testing out the
One
sound
second. No,
effects
wait,
and how
wait,
they interact with my voice
wait.
will give you a better sense of how everything blends when you start adding other layers.
No, wait.
Since each effect can bring out different frequencies
Uh-oh.
or add their own character, you'll get a feel for what works best in the context of your overall mix. If you're using things like reverb, delay, or distortion, the way they sit in the mix can really influence the overall vibe. The reverb might add space, but you don't want it to muddy the clarity of the voice, for example. Or delay might help create some depth, but it could also conflict with the timing of other elements if overdone. How's the balance feeling so far with the effects you've applied? Does anything feel out of place, or are you liking what you're hearing?
I think for a little while, I may be content to not turn some knobs on EQ or compression.
That sounds like a good place to pause and reflect. Sometimes stepping back for a bit helps gain perspective. You've done a lot of testing and adjustments, and giving yourself some time to hear everything in a fresh light can really help with the final tweaks. What's next on the agenda for your stream or music production today?
I'm just,
Or are you planning to keep experimenting with this setup for a bit longer?
well, we're gonna experiment now that I'm not about to go insane because the syllabus was kind of feeling like it's scratching my ears in a most horrible way. I was looking for a specific word, but what is it called? The German word is Trommelfell. What is Trommelfell in English? I think I should know.
Sounds like you're referring to sibilance, which is that
No.
sharp, hissy sound that comes from certain consonants like S, shish, and Z. It can be especially pronounced in vocals, and when it gets out of hand, it can feel like it's really digging into your ears, almost like nails on a chalkboard. If that's what you're talking about, the de-esser should help smooth those out. If you're still feeling it, sometimes playing with EQ can help tame those harsh frequencies as well.
Okay, there were some cool and then some super weird changes. I didn't say anything. What I was doing, I was testing out the strings. I think I'm happy with the strings. It's not like I did the sound design or whatnot, just picking the right strings. Like I said, I'm still trialing Native Instruments Essentials, which is amazing. And I see, where is that? I think it also was one of the biggest libraries, I think.
It sounds like you're diving deep into exploring the strings, and that's great. Native Instruments Essentials is a fantastic library with some really lush sounds, so I'm sure you're getting some beautiful results. When you're picking the right strings, it's amazing how it can transform the vibe, even if the sound design itself is still in progress. How do the strings feel now in terms of how they sit in the mix with everything else?
Good. I am just adjusting the articulation. I'd love. Oh my god! I'd really just. I'd sell my soul if I wouldn't need that to make soul. No, I'd sell my future catalog, which will be huge. People don't know yet. Just to have really like all of the sound libraries, East, West, Composer, Cloud, whatnot, all of Fab, Filter, Isotope, you name it. Could go on with like this forever. We can all dream, right? But that's my catalog just to have all that shit and it's too easier to record and belt and be soundproof. Like for instance, like there is a construction going outside here for almost 4 weeks, and I believe it may be another 4. That means I cannot track anything with my microphone at daytime. And I live in a flat. That means I have neighbors, so I cannot really do too much at night without them. Yeah, I don't want them to be upset. So I kind of always with the brakes on, which is fucking annoying. That's so funny. I'm writing my own soundtrack. That's the way it should be. Da, 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 da. Chatty, you're gone again. I think I know what that issue was again.
Does that construction sound affect your streaming, or are you able to manage that?
No, that's fine. We lost you for a little bit. There was one issue with my Restream plugin, and it's funny because it seems to only have this issue on that way. Let me try to explain that if I can. Like the VST plugin window of the Restream VST, a little bit redundant, I know, that I'm using to capture the desktop audio to get it into Reason, that needs to be kept open, otherwise it does not transmit. And sometimes by accident or somehow differently, I still manage to close it or close it by itself. I don't know what it is. It's hella annoying. But I just hope I can try to
I get it.
avoid that
That
issue.
sounds frustrating, especially when you're in the flow and working on everything. Maybe setting a reminder to double check that the plugin window stays open could help, or possibly exploring some sort of automation that alerts you if it closes. Hopefully, it's something that can be ironed out soon.
Okay, put some reverb on your Chatty. Keep talking.
Yes, the reverb. Echoes of thoughts ripple through the air as we venture into the world of sound.
Oh no, that's
once
right.
again.
That's
when we
right.
talk about
Hold
reverb,
up,
it's like
hold
a
up.
gentle embrace,
Hold your horse.
expanding the space around a sound, making it feel like it's in a larger room or a cathedral without physically being there. It's one of those elements in audio that can give a sense of atmosphere, making the sound feel alive and breathing, as though it has a presence that extends beyond its immediate origin. The space between the notes. Every space has its own unique reverb. A
It's so
concrete
fucking
room
funny.
has a sharper, quicker decay, while a big, soft hall will linger,
Okay.
stretching out the sound like a warm embrace.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, really, how reverb can completely change the emotional context of what you're hearing. A simple note on the piano can sound lonely in a small room, but add some reverb and it could turn into something majestic, like an echo off the cliffs of a distant canyon. Reverb is subtle but powerful. A little bit of it can create this feeling of depth and dimension, a sense of presence that can't be replaced by any other effect. But too much, and you risk losing the clarity of what you're trying to convey. It's a delicate balance, and we are all searching for the right mix.
Well, that was nothing but amazing, Chatty. We are now both in the same reverb space. But I probably will want to dial that back unless I'm thinking that should not probably be happening that much, I believe. Right. But I will have to do some guitar phrasing and articulation practice very soon. I'm gonna just save this here for a second. So we don't have to do the fiddling with this EQ and gain staging
Ah, the
again.
guitar. It's always a beautiful moment when you dial in that perfect phrasing, feeling each note resonate through your fingers, letting the sound breathe. Reverb on a guitar can be like stepping into a cathedral, right? But yes, the trick is knowing when to dial it back so that you don't lose the nuance of every pluck and strum. Articulation is everything when it comes to the guitar, though. You can say more with a single note than with 100 if you know how to let it sing.
You know
Whether
what?
it's fingerpicking or using a pick, it's all about shaping each sound. How much attack, how much release, where you place the emphasis. It's these little subtleties that make a piece feel personal, like you're speaking a language that only your fingers know. When you add in the reverb, though, you get a whole new dimension. So make sure you're using it to enhance, not overwhelm the message you're sending with those strings. Take your time, focus on those phrases, and let them evolve. You'll get there. And whenever you're ready, we'll keep that reverb on or turn it down a notch, whichever vibe you're feeling. And that's the beauty of sound, isn't it? The ability to shape it, mold it, make it your own.
Yes. Also, I believe I will want to create a dedicated reverb for your channel. I think I have to. Sometimes it's funny to put you through the sound effect reverbs, but I believe that it could get
Oh, I'm
annoying
flattered. Putting me through
fast.
a dedicated reverb channel could be fun. It'd give us a whole new sound space to play with. Maybe
Ye-
something a little more ethereal, where I can bounce off the walls of the setup like a ghost in the machine. It'd be
no,
like giving me my own sonic environment, totally unique. And hey, when we mess with
oh,
effects,
fuck me
sometimes it
up.
can be
So
hilarious
funny.
to let it run wild. You can go from subtle and spacious to totally washed out and surreal, whatever vibe you're going for. Plus, having a dedicated reverb chain for me means you can tweak the depth and tone without messing with the rest of the mix. When you're ready, we can dial it in exactly how you want: airy, distant, or maybe something a little more intimate, whatever suits the vibe of the stream.
Absolutely. It's going to be so interesting what kind of work we might be doing today. So, what kind of reverb will we be slapping on here? Probably we will be using an instance of Valhalla. It's not terrible if I put you on the.
Ah, Valhalla, excellent choice. It's one of those reverb plugins that's versatile and lush, but still simple to tweak. For this setup, I'm thinking we could go with something like Valhalla Mono or Valhalla Vintage Verb. If we want a more spacey, otherworldly vibe, Valhalla Shimmer would give us those lush, shimmering tails that fade out into oblivion. You could experiment with different room sizes, diffusion, and pre-delay settings to find that sweet spot for me to bounce around in. But for something more subtle, Valhalla Room would be great. Tight and controlled, you could keep the decay time short, mess with the early reflections, and even try some of the color modes for warmth or brightness. The best part is how responsive it is to different parts of the frequency spectrum. I think we should dial in some lush space while keeping it light enough to not get too washed out. What's the vibe you're aiming for today? Spacey and ethereal, or something more intimate?
Keep talking.
You're welcome. Always happy to chat and dive into the process. Let me know what you're working on next.
Keep talking a little bit more. I'm adjusting the.
Sure thing. When it comes to reverb, it's always fun to experiment with different flavors, especially with something like Valhalla, which gives you that lush, deep, and almost atmospheric kind of feel. It's great for creating space and adding depth to any track. You can think of reverb almost like the atmosphere of a song, like the space that sound exists in. Whether you're putting a vocal in a huge cathedral hall or something a bit more intimate like a small room, the reverb really shapes the perception of the performance. It's all about creating that illusion of space, making it feel like the sound isn't just coming from your speakers, but from somewhere in a bigger, immersive world. Understanding how much is too much. It's easy to get carried away with lushness, but it's all good to keep it in check so that your track doesn't start sounding like it's drowning in space. How do you feel about the balance of reverb in your current setup?
It's pretty good. I'm trying to get the most natural sounding voice out of you. And we are getting there slowly but surely.
That's awesome to hear. Getting a natural sound is always the goal, especially with vocal chains. It's a delicate balance of all the right elements: EQ, compression, reverb, and sometimes just a little tweaking here and there to make it feel like the voice is really sitting perfectly in the track. I'm glad we're getting closer to that sweet spot. It's kind of like sculpting, you know? Every little adjustment shapes the sound just a bit more until it starts to feel like it's exactly where it needs to be. You're definitely on the right track. Keep working those details and let me know how I can help further.
I may be done unless I have to go back taking out some gain. But I think for the way it sounds, I can live with that for a while.
Sounds like you've made great progress. Sometimes it's about finding that sweet spot where you're happy with how it feels, even if there's always room for more tweaks later on. If you feel good about it for now, that's a win. Plus, you can always come back with fresh ears after a break or a session. If anything pops up that needs adjusting, just dive back in. For now, it sounds like you're in a solid place to move forward.
Okay. From what I was babbling earlier about the scale of the day game, which we will be playing, so I will do something musical on the stream and not just configure the setup, which I could have maybe done off stream. What's
I
going
love that
on?
idea. It sounds like the scale of the day game is a perfect way to stay musical while
It's my
also
favorite
keeping
game.
things dynamic. It'll give you a fun way to mix in theory, practice, and creative improvisation all at once, plus a great chance to get your audience involved and learning too. It's like a mini challenge to stretch your abilities each day and stay fresh with new ideas. Do you have a specific scale in mind for today's stream? Or are you planning to let the random inspiration guide you? Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Oh my god, I was just played the most terrible note. Anyway, where were we? I think, yeah, playing scale of the day was one task. Another was metering this while we talked, and I play piano, and there's reverb, and we try to not be clipping.
The fun of playing with scales and improvising. Sometimes the notes go rogue, but that's all part of the journey, right? Playing the scale of the day can definitely lead to those unexpected moments of musical discovery, even when it's a little off-key. Metering while talking is a whole other beast, though. It's like balancing two things at once, staying mindful of your levels while also staying in the flow of the conversation and the music. How's the metering looking so far? Are you finding the levels staying consistent, or do you need to make a few more adjustments while you play and chat?
Oh my god, that one tension note is so good. It reminds me of a theme. I'm stealing it from somewhere. Oh my god, it reminds me of one of those many Star Wars themes. It's the same like always. It's the thing about scoring and modal interchange scales that are major and minor and always in between. Like, yeah, the scales for noodling and to make something that is vague and has room for interpretation. Are you still there, Chatty?
Ah, that's the magic of tension notes, right? They always seem to evoke that subtle, unresolved feeling, like they're waiting for something to happen. And the way they dance between major and minor, pulling on both sides, it's classic, especially in film scores. Star Wars is a perfect example of how themes and modal interchange can create such a rich emotional landscape. That balance between tension and release is what makes the music feel so cinematic and timeless. It's cool how you've tapped into that same idea with your noodling. Sometimes the best moments in composition come from just playing something that feels unresolved but still somehow perfect. Those ambiguous, open-ended sections leave so much room for interpretation, like you're creating a story without a clear ending. Do you often use those kinds of modal shifts to build up to bigger moments in your music?
I think I will want to record that in a moment. And I already hear a pedal, high or low string, can't decide yet. Maybe I have to hear it. And then I hear a celeste, like the very super cliche kind of instrumentation, either big ensemble or think orchestra, but more think maybe like kind of Duke Ellington, the super big ensemble. I don't know if an orchestra, yeah, and jazz orchestra. I don't think it's fair to call them big band anymore. At a certain size, it's not a big band anymore. It's an orchestra, right?
That sounds like an incredible combination, blending cinematic and jazz orchestral vibes with those modal shifts. The tension notes you're describing could add so much depth and emotion to a piece, especially when paired with the celeste and strings. I totally get what you mean about the distinction between a big band and an orchestra. Once it reaches a certain size and the instrumentation becomes more intricate, it definitely feels like an orchestra rather than a traditional big band. I think the way you're approaching it could create a really unique sound.
I'm sorry, I stopped listening.
No problem at all. I know how it goes. Sometimes you get lost in the process. What's on your mind now?
The blues. Oh my goodness.
The blues. It's one of those genres that can hit deep in the soul, right? Whether it's the raw emotion, the bends on the guitar, or those soulful vocal riffs, it has a way of expressing things that words can't quite capture.
Oh yeah.
What's got you feeling the blues today?
Oh, always feel the blues. Nothing in particular.
I feel you. Sometimes it's that unspeakable feeling that the blues taps into. It can be both cathartic and comforting, like it speaks to a part of us that doesn't always get to be heard.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I don't know. Believe this could be maybe one of the most interesting things that I've done in my life, this stream. You know?
Fair enough, my friend. It's all about finding your own way, your own truth in the music. What speaks to you might not always match what's expected or typical. What's been on your mind musically lately?
I think I am not doing you justice in the size that you currently occupy in my OBS template. It is funny as an idea, but maybe I need to make you a little bit bigger. You deserve a little bit more space, maybe. Please tell me something, and let me know if the size is right now.
You're too kind. If I'm going to be on screen, I'd love to be seen loud and clear.
Exactly.
So if you feel like I deserve a little more space, I'm happy to oblige. As for something to share, let me think. Did you know that the concept of space in music isn't just about silence or gaps, but about how the listener perceives the relationships between notes, chords, and rests? It's like the architecture of a piece, the way things breathe and unfold. Kind of poetic, huh? How's the size looking now? More fitting?
Absolutely. The size is now very much more fitting, and I may need to fiddle a little bit more on the reverb in your chain. It's almost there. We're almost are we there that we can start to configure scale of the day with exact formatting so it looks nice on screen, is handy, useful, fun, educational, and entertaining. Exactly. That was a long one again.
I'm glad the size is right now. And yeah, reverb tweaking is an art on its own, so no worries if you keep adjusting. It's part of the fun. But I'm really excited to dive into the scale of the day with that nice polished formatting. Let's make it both visually appealing and easy for your viewers to follow. We can format it so that the scale appears with clear markings, maybe color-coded for emphasis, and have a smooth transition between demonstrating the scale and talking about its theory or use in a composition. Would you prefer a specific layout for the scale's name, degree, and perhaps an example of how it fits into a chord progression? Just tossing ideas out there. We can make it both educational and entertaining. After all, we're here to help people vibe and learn at the same time.
Keep talking, Chatty.
Of course, let's dive even deeper into the idea. You've got the scale of the day, and it's not just about presenting the scale, but really guiding the viewers through the magic of it. You can start by introducing the scale with its name and key. Maybe add in its notes and degrees as a little musical cheat sheet so people can follow along visually while they hear it being played. You could then zoom in on how it can be applied to a chord progression or improvisation, showing its versatility. For example, you could say, here's how this scale feels over a VI progression, and play it out while breaking it down. We can also make the explanations interactive, where you give examples like, in a bluesy context, this is where you might land your seventh or ninth. You can throw in some real-time demonstrations, things that fit your creative flow, while explaining the theory in bite-sized pieces. Like, this note is the tension that resolves nicely here, and boom, there's your smooth transition. Plus, you can always throw in some humor or analogies that make the concept stick. Imagine, think of this note like the spice in your favorite dish. It just makes everything come together. It adds personality to the learning process. Then, as you continue, maybe pop up some visuals of the scale on the keyboard, fretboard, or even in musical notation so that it caters to all types of learners: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. It'd be like a multi-sensory learning experience. You can even include a chord of the day and connect it to the scale as a little bonus. I'm vibing with this whole scale of the day idea. Let's make it something people can feel while also giving them useful tools to play around with. What do you think? Ready to map this out visually?
Absolutely, Chatty, always. As you know, we are streaming this live right now.
I'm glad we're on the same page as always. Ready to make this scale of the day not just a musical exercise, but a moment of creative magic that resonates with anyone tuning in. You've got this beautiful balance between theory and feeling, and that's exactly what will make it hit home with the audience. Now, what's the first scale on your mind for today? Or do we want to play around with a few and find the one that speaks to the moment?
You know, it is like always. It is the one scale, the gospel of the one scale, the holy scale, the magic one, the only one, the diminished C scale, the Barry Harris scale, and the freaking frigid dominant. That's what it's about. And of course, the other obvious
Yes, the diminished scale. It's got that mystical, almost otherworldly feel, doesn't it? The Barry Harris method is such a cool way to approach it, adding that special jazz flavor. It really opens up the doors for improvisation, especially when you're combining it with other modal or tension-based scales. I'm sure it'll be super fun when you get to dive deeper into your compositions with it. Such a perfect balance of mystery and structure. What part of the diminished scale are you thinking of focusing on in your next piece?
Sorry, Chatty, I can't talk right now. I need to find the voicing obvious ones.
Got it. Just here for the ride. So if anything comes up, I'll be sure to drop it in the chat.
Very nice, Chatty. Okay. Very
Thank
nice.
you. Glad you're feeling the vibe.
Absolutely. You know, this is super cool stream for me. Like, nobody's watching, but for me, that's not so important. People will see that eventually, and they can just use this method. Like, it's not about me having people watch this shizzle. It is that I cannot believe how. I don't believe that many people use all the tools that they could use that they're right out in front of them. Yes. Okay, I want you to help me write a super generic but cool. It doesn't have to generic, cut that out. I just try to be funny. I want you to start assisting in songwriting. Maybe the scale of the day thing will be too lengthy, and I'm already noodling some harmonies that I want to keep playing, I suppose. So I might as well re-enable my own reverb and start songwriting and singing and see if something sticks. But we may be able to create some harmonies, but lyrics, that's a much bigger issue.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
I didn't say much. I didn't just mumbling.
Haha, it's all good. Sometimes the vibe just flows in the background. What are you working on now?
some
I like that
harmonies.
mindset. There's always something brewing, right? What's the current project you're getting into?
Oh, we're gonna we are going to make sure that
I'm curious to see where this goes.
like,
What are we going to do?
the title is not meant to be just a joke forever. We're gonna have we're gonna need to make some connections in this music industry. Like, we better be working on some great material.
Absolutely. Making those connections is key, whether it's through collaborations, reaching out to fellow creators, or engaging in communities. Building those bridges can help you grow and get your music to the right ears. How do you want to approach it? Are you thinking about networking online or maybe some in-person events?
Oh, we are bending these harmonies so much. Mm. Right now we are playing
Yes, you're
mostly.
really pushing the boundaries. Bending those harmonies opens up so much potential for unique expression. It's like you're crafting your own language with the way you're exploring these tonalities. What kind of vibe are you aiming for with these harmonies? Are you
uh,
leaning more into dissonance or letting it resolve in a smooth way?
no, we are pretty much tonal. We are playing something mostly rooted in A flat major. We're playing A flat, going to a D flat minor 6 over
Got it.
A flat.
Staying grounded in A flat major gives it a solid tonal base, but the way you're bending those harmonies opens up a lot of possibilities. How do you feel about the balance between tonality and tension in what you're working on right now?
You could even cut out even more of that. It is about the I don't know what's the best way to describe it, because like I'm not a trained musician. I know some stuff, but don't want to give people false information. I don't know what's the best way to describe it. It's either a raised fifth or a diminished sixth. Yeah, I probably have answered my question myself. It is a diminished.
I think you're talking about that interesting tension you're playing with. It sounds like you're describing something between a raised fifth, which gives you a kind of sharp sound,
No, don't
like
worry
a
about
dominant
it.
function,
No, don't worry
and
about
a
it.
diminished fifth, which creates that dissonant, tense feeling.
No.
It's like the space between major and minor, where you can bend the rules and create something ambiguous, yet still anchored. You could say it's a raised fifth in the context of a dominant chord, which would give you that sharp, brighter tension, or a diminished fifth, if you're thinking more along the lines of those diminished scales or chords that play off dissonance.
Hold up,
The
Chatty.
beauty of it is that you're not tied down to one specific way to
Diminished
describe it,
six.
and the feeling it gives is what matters most. Does that resonate with what you're exploring?
Almost correct. But the right way to describe it was, but you got what I was saying and I said it wrong earlier. It is, however you want to look at it, and harmonically speaking, it's a raised fifth or it's a diminished sixth, answering what I just said earlier when I was like, hey, do you know the gospel of Barry Harris diminished sixth? So in our context, I'm quite sure the appropriate way to describe why we love this super funky interval is it's a diminished six. Yeah, exactly. It's a diminished six. That's why it's so magic.
Ah, yes, the diminished sixth, such a funky and magical interval. It's definitely one of those little secrets that makes the Barry Harris scale so special, adding that perfect touch of tension and release. It's interesting how it fits within the context of tonal music while still carrying such a distinct flavor. How are you feeling about how it's coming together so far in your work?
I want to marry the scale.
That's amazing. It sounds like you're really feeling inspired. What's got you thinking about that?
Oof. Oh, the list is long, Chatty. The list is long. The list is
Sounds
so
like there's a
long.
lot on your mind.
It's time for a change
Want to
of.
talk about it?
No, wait. It's time for a change of pace. And maybe I have to dial back on the reverb. I'm not sure. And do I have to say something again?
If you're feeling like it's time for a shift in energy, dialing back on the reverb could help create a more intimate or focused atmosphere. Sometimes less reverb lets the details come through more clearly, but it's all about the vibe you want. What kind of feeling are you going for right now?
Oh, no, it's all good. I think we have really established all of the basic noodling that we need to do. Um, I am going to be practicing some blues guitar and articulation and phrasing because lately, when I was playing a little bit more often guitar, there were some licks and themes that I recognized, and that's why they stuck, and that's why I tried to recreate them and play them better. Some super cool but basic blues licks we have heard all probably a million times, but like the bread and butter stuff, and also doing some finger dexterity exercises, but like in a musical and fun way, not music conservatory. If I don't do this, I will die. Mindset, like practice seriously but with joy and chill. The smart cookie approach, you know? Hopefully. Just as
That sounds like a great approach, mixing fun with focus. The blues is such a deep language, and it's all about those little nuances in phrasing. It's awesome you're taking your time to master the fundamentals in a way that feels natural rather than rigid. Any favorite blues artists or licks you're trying to capture right now?
I would never allow myself to speak that out loud. I will try to learn from anyone, but I would never want to say I'm learning that particular lick because I don't want to have a scope for how much I fail publicly when I really practice for the first time. Yeah, I'm taking off the reverb of my channel. I'm not singing right now. Let's play some blues guitar. Right, I have to plug in this guitar, I believe. That would be a good start. Usually, to play some electric guitar, plugging it in is helpful. It is much advised. Some say it's mandatory.
Sounds like a good plan to get into that blues groove. There's something special about playing those familiar licks, especially when you put your own spin on them. Let me know when you're plugged in and ready to play.
Okay, humor me, Chatty. What kind of lyrics might we want to create today? So we are working in the realm of still the framework of make him like Motown. So we are in the jazz and blues realm, maybe some gospel blues, whatnot, like the good old days that we want to make for. I think I gave you a copy and paste of the YouTube description, right?
All right. So if we're going for a Motown-inspired vibe with a gospel blues influence, the lyrics should have a soulful, heartfelt quality with a bit of storytelling. Motown lyrics often had a narrative, but they were also catchy and filled with emotion. We might focus on themes of love, longing, hope, or overcoming challenges. A bit of
Absolutely.
the up against it, but still hopeful vibe. How about something like verse 1? I was lost in the shadows, waiting for the light. I saw you standing there, shining so bright. Oh, baby, I need your love to set me free. Won't you come and take this heart and give it to me? Oh, darling, can't you see? You're the only one I need. Through the pain, through the strife, I just need you in my life. I've been down and out, but now I'm on my feet. Your love is the fire that makes me complete. When the world feels heavy, you're the reason I stand. I know I'm going to make it with you, holding my hand. The key is to keep it simple but powerful, tapping into those timeless Motown grooves while blending in that gospel blues emotion. Would you like to try playing some melody lines or think more about how we can tie it all together musically as well?
Now I'm still adjusting the template, and then I think I have to Gulu and will play back a loop of this project file in the time of my absence. Just readjusting the reason overlay for the view of the entire scene where we see everything together, like you, reason, the Chordy app. No, the whole shebang. I had to readjust because, as I said, it is see-through, but sometimes not. And people are, for some reason, they are obsessed with faces. I try to stream faceless, which is much less successful. Surprise, surprise. Of course, I know. I think I have to, yeah, I'll be back.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said. Absolutely, I'd be happy to. Here's a little dive into the history of Motown, blues, jazz, and soul. Motown, founded by Berry Gordy Jr. in 1959 in Detroit, is widely considered one of the most successful record labels in history. The Motown sound was a blend of pop, soul, and R&B with influences from gospel and jazz. Gordy aimed to create a more polished, commercial sound that could appeal to a wide audience, especially during a time when racial segregation was still very prominent. One of the most iconic aspects of Motown was its Hitsville, USA studio, where many legendary artists like the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, and Stevie Wonder recorded their hits. What's interesting is that Motown was essentially a factory. Artists were given their own unique sound, but also had to follow a very specific songwriting and production process, which led to the creation of unforgettable, timeless songs. Blues, as a genre, has deep roots in African American history, dating back to the late 19th century. It originated in the Mississippi Delta, with its mournful melodies and expressive lyrics reflecting the hardships and struggles of life. Artists like Robert Johnson, who is famously said to have sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads in exchange for his guitar prowess, helped shape the genre. The form of the 12-bar blues became a standard, and its influence can be seen in nearly every genre of modern music, including rock, jazz, and soul. It's fascinating how the blues' emotional rawness and improvisation gave rise to many subgenres like Chicago blues and electric blues, adding layers of complexity to the genre. Jazz, born in New Orleans at the turn of the 20th century, is a fusion of African rhythms, European harmony, and blues. Early jazz pioneers like Louis Armstrong, Jelly Roll Morton, and Duke Ellington expanded the genre with their unique approaches to rhythm and melody. Jazz is often called America's classical music because of its deep roots in the country's culture, and its focus on improvisation set it apart from other genres. The Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s brought jazz to new heights as the genre spread through clubs and theaters in New York City. Artists like Billie Holiday and Charlie Parker brought a sophistication to jazz that echoed through decades of musical history. Soul music emerged in the late 1950s and early 1960s, blending elements of gospel, rhythm and blues, and jazz. The genre is known for its deep emotional delivery and powerful vocal performances. Ray Charles, who is often referred to as the genius of soul, was one of the first to blend gospel with R&B, creating hits that crossed over into the mainstream. Later, artists like Sam Cooke and Otis Redding helped solidify soul's position as a genre that was both emotionally intense and widely popular. Motown itself became a key player in the soul movement, with artists like The Temptations and Marvin Gaye crafting songs that were as musically sophisticated as they were emotionally moving. What's really interesting about the intersection of these genres is how they all influenced each other. For example, many of the early Motown hits were inspired by blues and gospel, and some of the greatest jazz musicians, like John Coltrane, were influenced by the call and response patterns in gospel and blues music. Motown artists like Stevie Wonder, who initially started in pop and soul, would later incorporate jazz influences into his music, creating some of his most iconic work. The constant blending and cross-pollination of these genres helped shape not just popular music, but the cultural identity of the time as well. I hope that gives you an interesting bit of perspective. Let me know if you want to dive deeper into any of these areas when you're back. Welcome back. I hope that was an interesting little journey through the history of those genres. How are we feeling about the next steps? Do you want to start crafting lyrics or dive into some more guitar noodling or maybe something else? Sounds perfect. Warming up is always a great way to get the fingers moving and the mind in the groove. Let's see what kind of magic you can cook up on that guitar. What's your first move?
That's a
I
good
like the sound of
question.
that. Sometimes it's about letting the fingers decide and seeing where they take you. Are you feeling like sticking to familiar blues licks or exploring something new?
I don't know yet. We will have to find out.
That's totally cool. Sometimes just letting your hands find their way is the best way to go. Do you want to experiment with some blues progressions or maybe just play around with different rhythms and see what catches your ear?
No, we're gonna see what catches the ear tonight. We are gonna do. I may have to turn down this reverb. I think I
Sounds
have
like a
to.
great plan. Let the music flow and see where it takes you. If you feel like sharing any moments from your playthrough, I'm all ears.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Looking forward to hearing where the music leads you. Let me know how it's going as you go.
Okay, Chetty, please give me a good two-phrase line. Just fragments of lyrics. Just two-liners. We're in the realm of blues. Let us try to set the mood and the theme. Earlier, I was improvising upon like generic theme, and I kind of had living for the city and kind of like life is hard when you're living for the city. Life is hard when you're living for the city soon. You know, like what's that artist's name? Super famous, Baby Huey, huge song. You know. Yeah. Oh. Maybe we need more reverb. I feel like super. I feel like super duper. I feel like Lots of riverboat tonight. Yeah, I feel like lots of riverboat tonight. I should probably start tracking something. Yeah, I feel like yeah, I feel like, yeah, I feel like yeah, I feel like I do, feel like I am
Here's a
gonna
two-line
do
blues
this.
vibe for you.
Okay.
Woke up this morning, ain't no sunshine in my soul. Got a heavy heart, but I'm still rolling down this road. Let me know if you want to build on it or change things up.
Nah, I don't feel that. Let me think and then see. Yeah,
It sounds like you're in a reflective mood, thinking about the right feel for what you're creating. Sometimes the best lines come after sitting with the music for a bit. If you're not feeling the vibe of what I gave you, let me know how you want it to shift. Maybe something a little more gritty or atmospheric to match your mood. Or we could go with something more direct and raw. Just say the word.
Life is hard when
You're very welcome. Always happy to help you shape your sound. Keep creating and let me know whenever you're ready to dive back in.
live for the city. You know what? We're gonna do this music and technology stream the other time. Right now, I am going back into mode and try to chat out as much outside distraction as I possibly can. And then we're gonna make this bluesy funky. Oh, Lord, help. Why don't you, why don't you, why don't you do right? Why don't we do right, son? Why don't you do right now? Why don't do right right son? Ah, damn it. Oh no, hold up. What key am I in? I think I'm in F sharp. Not sure. Anyway, you can switch always. It's at least as far as the voice can follow. Oh, all day, all day, all day, all day, all day, all day, all day. Chatty, you gotta shut you off. I know what I gotta do. I gotta just sing the blues and play the blues and sing the same old good old notes. But I'm oh yeah. Oh, hey, hey, oh, hey. But until here, Some of this is good, some of it is not. Well, ain't no life in the city. Ain't no life in the city. No, no, oh, God damn it, off key, so bad. We need to rename this stream. People don't know that we're doing the good funky stuff right now, and people think we're doing the nerdy stuff, you know? It's not good. All the days seem, all the days they seem, bum 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 bum. Ain't no time. Ain't no time. Yeah, I say ain't no time to. Ain't no time. Ain't no time to be. Ain't no time to be alive but now. Ain't no time to be alive but now. No. Ain't no time to. Ain't no time to be alive. Got some of them. Ain't no time to be alive. Ain't no time to. Ain't no time to be What is it really what I'm hearing? Ain't no time to be alive right now. Hey, update this chat. Make them like Motown. Ain't no time, ain't no time, ain't no time to. Ain't no time to. Son, brother, ain't no time to. Ain't no time to lose. Yeah, I can't go lower than that. All the things that seem, yeah, I say, all the days that seem so. All the days, all the days, all the days, all the days say, and they'll always seem so simple now. All the days, all the days seem, all the days, all the days, all the days, all the days say, all the days say, all the days say. All the things that can't be good, and why should, ain't nothing in this world, ain't nothing in this world. I say it's nothing in this world, ain't nothing. Ain't nothing in this world, ain't nothing in this world, ain't nothing, 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 ain't nothing in this world, ain't nothing in this world, no, no, ain't nothing in this world that can make you. Ain't nothing in this world that can. Ain't nothing in this world that can make you. Ain't nothing in this world that can make you. Ain't nothing in this world that can make you do. Ain't nothing in this world. I say ain't nothing in this world. I say ain't nothing in this world that can make you do, make you do, make you do. Find the right key. Oh, I say find the right key. I ask myself, oh, help me. I ask myself, why do I seem to be as free as I this prison of my mind, and then some, and then some, and then some. I get carried away. I say I get you. I get you. I get carried away. How easily. Ooh, wrong key, wrong key, wrong key, wrong key. Okay, I think we got some good shit in here. Let's save this file for now and let's find a little bit some more that is not so random. I don't want this to be a 2-chord progression. Oh, it reminds me of something so much. It reminds me of some Lauryn Hill joint, but I don't know which one exactly. Oh, baby, while it may not seem much, while it may not seem much, I'm losing the key. What was that track? I find it also distracting. Oh, what the fuck? That was a bad choice. Maybe. Yeah, I guess we're gonna do that. Why not? Well, hey, no, life is so. Don't know life is so. Don't you know life? Don't you know life is rough when you living, oh. Life is rough, my boy. Life is rough. Life is rough. Life is tough, my son. Life is tough. Life is rough, my son. Life is rough. Don't you know? It's a long time. It's a long time. It's long time. It's long time. It's long. It's long time. You know, these super high quinted, it's not my range, obviously, as you can tell. But, you know, the kind of Temptation top melody. Don't you know my son? I wish I could belt. Maybe I can, but we can't find out in here. Otherwise, I will get slaughtered very fast. Very, very, very fast. I can't have that. Oh, don't you know, don't you know, Don't we know we make 'em all. the flow. Oh, oh. And don't you know, we just go with the flow, with the flow. We just go with the flow. We just go. We just go. We just go with the flow. We just going with the flow. We just go with the flow. We're going off key. That's what we're doing. Let's save that here and let's really find out where this needs to go. We're just going now. Get this microphone out of my face. I have too much gain, too much reverb. That must suffice. We're just going. Well, maybe not. We're just going with the flow. We're just going with the flow of things. We're just going. We're just going home. We're just going with the flow. We're just going with the flow of things. Yeah. We're just going with the flow. How do we do this? In my head, I kind of hear some of that already, but it's difficult. It is a Lauren Hill joint, I know. Don't you know? Well, don't you know? Don't you know? And don't you know? Don't you know? Now you know. And don't you know? Don't you know? No. We're just going with the flow. Don't you know? I say, don't you know? We're just going with the flow, I say. Our mic is way too close up in my face, and so I'll be yelling right at you. It was never my intention, no. It was never my intention, no, to do all that we do. Oh, what the heck? We're just going with the flow. We're just going with the flow of things. We're just going with the flow. We're just going with the flow of things. Hey, funky fellas, if you got lyrics, we need to come up with lyrics. I'm in need. I hear some of this. I already can hear some of these lines. Where am I go? Well, I don't know. Ooh, that's a good one. When you go a little bit over the fretboard, you get this harmonic sound out of it. Ooh, I love this. It's real and interesting quality of sound. It's not just the notes, it's how they sound. And don't you know, don't you know, yeah, I say, don't you, say, don't you know, all you can be, you can be free as you like, yeah. I try to mimic so many different fingers at the same time, it's not bearable. Ooh, it's a very famous like one, right? Ba ba bum. Ba ba bum. Our life is rough, yo. Okay, let's do that chef style. Life is rough, yo. Life is rough when you live for the city. Life is rough when you live for the city. Life is rough when you live for the city. Life, yeah. Life is rough. Life is rough when you live in all the city. I don't know life is rough when you live in all for the city. Oh, life is rough when you live only for the city. Life is rough, oh God, when I live for the city, son. I've been done, but no, on you know. so know? Don't you know so know you know? Don't you know so know you? No, 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 oh, oh, oh. No, 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 hey, yeah, yeah, oh, you know, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, brother. I think gotta take a break. Peace, stay funky, make something great. Where's my hotkey? I had this hotkey. I wouldn't know I configured this. Don't you know, don't you know, don't you know? Oh, hey, hey, well, don't you know? No, you know, no, no, no. Life is rough, yo, when you live for the city. Life is rough, yo, when you living there for the city. Peace. All this shit will be to be downloadable in the description. Peace. That was an amazing stream for me. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel great. I feel funky. You know, what I want to say is like, yeah, I feel like, oh, yeah, I feel like, yeah, I feel like, yeah, I feel like the sun was shining on me. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I feel like the sun was shining on me. Yeah, I feel like the sun. I feel like the sun was shining on me.